Welcome to Takeology with your three boys in the lab so you can do the cooking. How we doing today? It's me and Matt McDonald here. We're missing Avery because he's out chasing some ladies. You know what I mean? Got to get them ladies out there. So we're missing him today, but it's me and Matt. Matt, how you doing?
We're doing good. How are you, brother?
Doing good, dude. Good old Wednesday. Got a lot of stuff coming up for the league. Got what, 1 week, right?
Yes, sir. Couldn't be a more exciting time. We've
Football
waited,
season, baby.
it feels like an eternity since last season.
It's about time. Preseason was at least a little bit, but it wasn't the greatest. But we had some college football last weekend.
Yes, we did.
Georgia
F-
Tech, huh?
FSU just continues to fumble.
It's just sad. Georgia Tech pulled it through, though. Good old Georgia teams. All right, well, we're going to get started with the lab report. We have got a lot on the lab report as the season gets started. 53-man rosters are all full now, I believe, as of today. They've done all their cuts and ads, and there's probably even more stuff coming. But biggest thing on the news, we have been waiting for a contract for our boy CD, and he has
got paid.
secured the bag.
He sure did. I mean, my goodness. It's what happens when you wait, Jerry.
It's true. $136 million for 4 years, and it includes a $38 million signing bonus. That's insane money.
What more can you say? I mean, it's not that I'm saying he's not worth it, but geez, that is just it's an unbelievable amount to pay for a receiver.
It's insane.
Oh, what is he, second in the league behind Jefferson? I think it was like 34 a year.
Yeah, Jefferson's up there, and now he's the next or second highest paid non-quarterback.
Yeah, Jefferson, he's at the 35 a year, isn't he?
I believe so. I don't have the fact for that exactly, but he's up there. I mean, they're both getting the bucks. So I guess for a question for that, how do you think this affects Jamar Chase?
I really don't think we're going to see him get a contract. Just the Bengals' track history, they're not going to overpay. I mean, they're going to pay him, but I think it'll be next year. He's already practiced once this week for the first time. He didn't practice today, but he's just kind of a diva. That's just how he is.
Sure.
I think he's just going to play the season. They might move some money around and give him a slight raise this year. But I don't think we're going to see. I mean, we have 11 days until the season starts. So they'd have to get it.
Yeah.
They're not going to give him a contract mid-season. So I don't see it getting done in the matter of a little over a week. So we'll see. I think he'll play. I mean, I know it scares people, but he'll play.
Here's me.
Yeah,
Jamar Chase managers.
Yeah, I'm one of them. It's definitely scary with him not practicing with the team in the off season. You can do all the workouts you want by yourself, but it's just nothing compared to having your pads and playing with your teammates. So
yeah,
his conditioning is definitely a little scary. You would hate to see him miss all these practices and then get hurt early in the season just because his body's not used to it. But I'm going to hope for the best. I'm going to be positive. I'm his manager, so I really hope he plays.
Get him a contract, dude. Pull it through now. Come on.
I've done my best.
You've done your due diligence.
It's not happening. It's not going to happen until after the season's over, in my opinion.
I agree with you. Yeah, I mean, if you're a Jamar Chase manager, you don't get rid of him. Obviously, I mean, I feel like that's a bad decision. You got to hold on to him. Don't accept any trades that come your way, right?
Yeah, I mean, I won't. But I think Jamar he showed his hand when he showed up to practice.
Yeah,
that's just he really doesn't have any leverage now because he's gone to practice now. They know he's going to more than likely play. So I don't think there's any reason for the Bengals to pay him before the season starts.
I agree with you. Speaking of Cowboys, we had a signing I believe just today, and you never know what could happen, but Dalvin Cook has signed with the Cowboys. Mr. Matt, how do you think that affects the running back depth in Dallas?
It doesn't affect it at all. Maybe if you could combine Dalvin Cook and Ezekiel Elliott right now, they might be a functional player. But we saw Dalvin last year. He's not going to contribute anything fantasy wise. That organization, especially Jerry Jones in specific, love Ezekiel Elliott. He might not, or he's definitely not as good as he used to be, but they have a strong love for him there. Um, he was a leader of that locker room for a very long time.
Yeah.
And I think he's kind of seen in that light still. Um, so I don't even, Dalvin Cook's not even going to break into that RB2 role, in my opinion. I think I think he's bounds better than him at this time. Uh, there's been numerous reports saying Rico is the one with the most burst in camp and during these practices. Um, so I think it'll be more of just a split backfield between Zeke and Rico, unless injuries happen, which Zeke's the old running back, so it's very likely.
I'm in on Rico. I'm a fan of him. He's quick and they can do a 2-man back. He's kind of like a. I'm not going to compare him to Tony Pollard when they were there because Tony Pollard was a dog when he split snaps, but Rico's kind of has that speed. You know what I'm saying? At least in terms of the two of them. We got a big pup list, which means they're out 4 weeks at least, right? Bare minimum. Nick Chubb was a big one. It's kind of expected, honestly. Um, Now, is he somebody you would draft even though he comes in with a pup list guarantee? Like TJ Hawkinson, even. You know, they're going to be out guaranteed 4 weeks. Are these guys you think you're going to be drafting?
Um, TJ, I wouldn't have a problem with. He
Yeah.
was on track to have a phenomenal year last year before he got hurt. Um, with Nick Chubb, he's hurt. That this is the same leg he hurt early on in his career. Um, and Jerome Ford he's just a capable guy. He's not going to give you just outstanding weeks. But when he started last week or last year, he was a top 24 back every game he started. Um, the only downside to Jerome is for some reason they don't like giving him the goal line work. Last year it was Kareem Hunt, um, and most likely he won't have the goal line work again this year. But I think Ford is more than capable of leading that team in the backfield. And even when Chubb comes back, who are we to say that he's going to be the same player he was? And
Mhm.
if he's just in a split backfield, I don't think it is worth a late round draft pick, which most leagues have already drafted by now. So if you have him, you have him. But unless we just see him come back and just take over that workload again, he's not going to be someone I'm targeting throughout the year.
Yeah. I like TJ Hawkinson. I picked him up myself even because he's
Yeah,
guaranteed to at least be something good. And it's not he's not too injury prone. Whereas Nick Chubb, this is like his third time going through ACL or MCL injuries or knee injuries.
and the same leg,
Yeah.
and he's not a young guy.
No.
Um, and
28, I think.
running backs just take so many hits. I don't think he's going to come back to what he was. But TJ, if your league has an IR spot, he pick him up. That's a no
Yeah.
brainer. Just keep him until he's back. Especially if you punted the tight end position, that's a wonderful addition. But I don't know if he warrants a bench spot if you don't have an IR. I probably wouldn't in that case. Um, but if you have an IR spot, no brainer. Pick him up.
Yeah. Stash him. I'll run through these real quick through these pup list players because there's quite a bit, and we'll kind of touch up on a few of them. Tyler Higbee, nothing to be worried about. I mean, he hasn't done much. Kendrick Bourne with the Patriots receiver. Jonathan Brooks is. I mean, we kind of knew that was coming. That's somebody definitely to pick up in Dynasty. A big one I kind of wanted to touch on today. AJ Dillon, season ending, not pup list, right? He's on a season ending
Yeah,
IR.
yeah, he's done for the year. It was listed as a neck injury, um, which he's not he's not going to move miles for you in fantasy. But that does open a lane for Jalen Wright, their rookie. Um,
Or Marshawn, it's Marshawn Lloyd.
Marshawn Lloyd, sorry, Jalen Wright with the Dolphins. Um, I don't. There's a lot of mixed opinions on Jacobs this year. Um, I, I don't love it because they just in their past have been a split backfield, and Aaron Jones has worked just because of how explosive he is. Um, but with Jacobs, he's more of a volume guy. So if he has that full load, yes, he'll be a very good really good running back for you this year, just because of how good that offense is. But if he's splitting the backfield, I'm not a huge fan of Jacobs. But this does open a path for Lloyd, as you said. Um,
Yeah.
this could make him at least you'll at least pay attention to him now, I guess is
Yeah.
what I'm saying, because
Yeah.
you knew AJ was going to get some work, but with him out of the way, it at least opens a path.
Yeah. Matt LaFleur is known for a committee running back. I mean, it's
I
just how
hate
he
it.
goes.
I
Even
hate it.
receivers, I would say he's kind of like there's no receiver one. It's a football team, you know?
He just denies naming a wide receiver one. I hate it. In my eyes,
It's a bit ridiculous.
it's Jalen Reed, but Watson is way more. He's explosive. I mean, if his hamstrings hold together, Watson is a heck of a player. But
Yeah.
as we've seen, he gets hurt every year. So
Yeah. You never know. You wanted to touch on this one. Odell Beckham is on the pup list, right?
yeah, and like I was telling you, I don't think that uh, he was going to necessarily play a huge role, but I do like it for Waddle and Hill owners. They were going to get a ton of targets anyways. They were going to get peppered. Hill's just been one of the most targeted receivers when he went to the Dolphins. But I do think this helps both of them. Just their floor is higher now because they're gonna get everything, which I love. Being a Waddle owner, I'm ecstatic about it. Um, I personally like Odell. He's a good receiver if he could stay healthy, but this has just been the story of his career. He's gonna he's always hurt.
Yeah.
It's a sad story.
New York Giant rookie season, right? That's or the sophomore season, maybe, even I can't remember exactly.
Just his whole career. Just
Yeah,
that's
it's
it.
bad. It is sad. Um, Another thing I wanted to touch on: Jalen Warren is reported to be ready for Week 1. I think that kind of affects Najee Harris and the backfield in general. On top of Steelers news, Russell Wilson is named the starter for Week 1. Let's ride, Steeler Nation. How
I
you feel
hate
about
it.
that?
I hate it. Um, as far as like just a winning football games perspective, it's probably what's best for the Steelers. But there's no upside with Russell Wilson. He's he's gonna have a season like he did last year. It's not great. It's not awful. It's just middle of the pack. Um, I don't love it for Pickens. I mean, we saw Justin Fields support. He supported DJ Moore over there in Chicago, to a DJ being a top 10 receiver. And I think we all had high hopes for Pickens this year. But with Wilson, I just don't know. I don't love Russell Wilson at all. At least with Fields, you knew he's going to throw it deep. It might not be accurate, but at least Pickens has a chance to have a good fantasy season, kind of like DJ did last year.
I like Pickens. It's just hard with the quarterback issues, and you don't even. I mean, truly, with Arthur Smith at the OC, you don't know how the offense is going to be in turn. I mean, you just never know out there, you know. So it's kind of tough to
He's
gauge.
gonna
But
have he's gonna have two tight ends out there. You know it. And
yeah,
we saw with Drake London, he was never consistent because of freaking Arthur Smith. And I mean, this is going to be good for the backfield, kind of like how we started this conversation. Um, but for Pickens, it just makes me worry with Wilson and Arthur Smith. It's a tough combination to have any confidence going into Pickens this year.
yeah, they'll be 9-8, and they'll make the playoffs, lose round one. So either
I
way,
don't
good
think
news, right?
I don't. Avery's not here to defend them, but I don't. I think this is where the streak ends. I,
Ooh,
I
hot take.
yeah, I don't think they'll be above 500 this year.
I can see that just with the issues and I just don't like Arthur Smith as an OC. I don't like the way he kind of runs offense, and your defense can't win you everything. So I agree with you.
I I mean, Russell Wilson is not going to win games for them. Um, and they won a lot of games last year on the back of their defense. And that, as we've seen over the years, defense just it fluctuates. You can have a great year, the breaks can go your way. Then next year, the breaks don't go your way. So I think this is finally it for Tomlin on the over 500. And I would love to see him coach a different team. I
Yeah,
really would. I'm just tired of him coaching mediocre teams. Um, he's a heck of a coach, but I think his Steelers era has ended.
This is the year he gets fired. You heard it here first from Matt. No, you
Well,
never know.
Avery would want that. He's been saying it for
Yeah,
the last 2 years.
every Steelers fan might actually be okay with Mike Tomlin being fired.
I think
Uh,
it's just time.
yeah,
I'll leave it at that.
it's time. All right, it's also time for our next lab report issue. Kyron Williams is named punt returner for the Rams. I do not like this at
I
all.
hate it. I hate it.
Yeah, I mean he could be a league winner or a running back one with the potential and the offense he's on. But anytime somebody is moved to a position of kick returner or punt returner, they lose a little bit of value in my eyes because risk of injury, right? I mean, fatigue. They might be on the field less. And in the report that John McVay put out, he included we love Ronnie Rivers and Blake Corum. So to me, he's already saying we're putting Kyron Williams out there because we trust in him and we love him, but we like our backups too. So it kind of scares me in terms of a committee running back, maybe even. I doubt it because that's not what he's known for. But I mean, how do you feel about this?
I absolutely hate it. I saw the report today, and it almost took my breath away. I mean, we're talking about like a first, second round pick that you're putting in such injury jeopardy. Uh, Kickoffs, there's just so many variables that could get a player injured. Um, and yes, you might trust him, but is it really worth him getting a stupid injury off returning kicks? Um, and I think that does mean that he's going to have less of a workhorse role this year. And I think Blake Corum is going to be more involved than people think, which is weird to think about because Sean McVay has been a one running back guy for, I mean, forever almost.
Yeah.
Um, I just don't think it's worth the risk. I get it. I get it as far as the Rams' perspective go because I mean very he's a very capable player who could give you a highlight play anytime he touches the ball. Um, but he's a guy that struggled with injuries coming into the season, and same thing last year. He struggled with injuries during the year. Um, so I don't think putting an injury-prone player returning these punts is going to be a smart decision over the course of the season, unless Blake. Do you think this means Blake Corum has shown like a ton during these practices?
I
Or
think he's at least kind of, earned himself more snaps just from what they've seen. Because, I mean, from the report, and, they already love Ronnie Rivers. I mean, he got time last year, but just it's kind of it's tough to say. But I think Blake Corum has a role coming up that we didn't see coming, right? That kind of might affect Kyron Williams. Because, I mean, in terms of, I mean, it depends on the punting, but he's going to be fatigued, right? He's not going to be out there as much in my eyes. And also, in terms of if he gets injured, they're definitely going to go with Blake Corum. There's no doubt. They have to. So in terms of dynasty, I think if he's out there, find a way to pick him up, draft him at least just in case.
yeah, I think this definitely makes Blake Corum way more valuable. I don't I don't necessarily think it's just going to be a split backfield like 50-50.
Right.
I think he'll still get most of the work. But just the injury risk you're putting him into returning these kicks, I think you just have to mark Blake Corum up in your rankings or whatever you have. If he's on the waivers in your league, go grab him because Kyron's already an injury prone player, and if he's returning punts like this, there's a high chance that he's going to get hurt. Uh, so if you drafted Blake Corum, or I mean Kyron Williams early, I would be a little scared for this upcoming season.
Yeah. And if you haven't drafted yet, I would revalue the pick in Kyron Williams. He's usually going kind of, I think that, I mean, we did a 10 team league, that 10 first round, second round, that's kind of where it goes, the end there, that first round, beginning of second, which is high right now to me in terms of him becoming a punt returner.
But we can't over
Right.
it
Over exaggerate.
because I mean he had next to Christian McCaffrey, he was phenomenal last year. So it's hard to overreact to this, but it just makes you nervous because he's already injury prone. So that this is just another variable that you're going to have in your head all year. Like every punt return, you're just going to be holding your breath. And that's not something that I want personally.
Yeah. That's why I would stay away from him, just because of the emotional side of, like, I don't want to deal with that, you know? So I still think he's a high caliber pick, but it definitely affects it. Um, Last thing we'll talk about on the lab report today, Juju Smith-Schuster was signed to the Chiefs, right? And Kadarius Toney was released, sadly. He doesn't get a role like we wanted as Chiefs fans, right, Matt? No, I'm just kidding. Not Chiefs fan. And Kadarius Toney is awful. But on top of Juju Smith-Schuster coming in, Matt, talk to us about your team's receiver room. How are you feeling? And tell us about Rashee Rice today.
Um, Before the report today of Rashee Rice, I was very confident in our receiver room. Like we've talked about on past podcasts, Hollywood might not be there week one. I was pretty comfortable with that. But now we got the report today saying Rice is probably not going to be on the commissioner exempt list. And there will likely be a suspension happening of at least a month, maybe more. So with that news coming out, I am ecstatic now that we signed Juju. He's a guy that's familiar with our offense. He was here a couple years ago. He had over 1,000 yards in this offense. For some reason, it just didn't work out with the Patriots. He was injured, and then they also just had awful quarterback play. So I don't necessarily know the caliber player we're getting 2 years later, but at least he's familiar with our offense. He knows how everything's run. He has that rapport with Mahomes. So I don't know if he's going to be worth picking up in your league. I guess we'll see that week one. He could definitely be a waiver pickup after week one if he has a substantial role. But as of now, we're kind of just waiting on the Rashee suspension. It could be a month. It could be a little longer. We're not sure. But this definitely makes me want Hollywood to be back week one. That's for sure. But with Rashee out and us cutting Toney, we also cut Justin Ross. I don't know if you heard that. He's back on the practice squad.
Okay.
So, I mean, just the list them out. We have McCole Hardman, Sky Moore, Nico Rahimio, who he was a guy last year that was doing really good in practice, but he got hurt before the season. So that's a receiver to look out for. We'll see what kind of role he has week one. No, don't pick him up until we see what role he has week one. Then we also have Rashee Hollywood and Xavier Worthy. With Rashee likely being suspended and Hollywood likely not being there week one, I definitely think this bumps Xavier up a little bit. Now he has a tough week one matchup against the Ravens, so I probably wouldn't start him. But we'll at least see what he's made of week one, because that's a physical team we're going up against in Baltimore. So at least we'll get to it. It does make me worry as a Chiefs fan, Rashee being out. But at least we'll get to see what this wide receiver core is made of. Last year it was just dogged on all year, and it wasn't great. We led the league in drops. Hopefully that doesn't happen this year. But I think Xavier is a playmaker, and I'm excited to see what he's got this year. And hopefully the Rice suspension isn't substantial. I know it's going to be at least a month. He deserves it. I'll point that out. But as a fantasy player, it does kind of hurt because Rice was going to be our wide receiver one. He still will be when he comes back. But it definitely kind of stinks us not going to be able to play him for at least 4 weeks to start the season.
Yeah, definitely something to look for. I think it even elevates Travis Kelce a little bit in terms of value. I mean, he's already up there, but it's one of those things you got to start looking out for. Juju Smith-Schuster, right?
Hard name.
Golly, yeah, it's kind of tough. Well, that's the pup list for today and the lab report. So you lab
Long
rats
one
stay.
today.
Yeah, you guys stay dug in. We've been out for a little bit. We're gonna try to send out podcasts Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Hopefully, is our plan, and you'll see the content out there. But yeah, so we're out for a little bit. Had a long list. Let's go ahead and get into some McDonald's matchups. Right, week one's coming up next week. We got McDonald's matchups, our new segment for this week. I did the Eagles and Packers, so we'll be talking about them here in a sec. Matt, Let's start off with your McDonald's matchup of week 1.
Okay, so a game I'm excited about is going to be the Cardinals at the Bills. We're finally going to get to see this new remade offense of the Bills. First time we've seen Josh Allen without Stephon Diggs and all. I mean, what, the last 4 years? Um, this is a scary time for Bills fans. They seem to win that division every year, but there's at least some scare scare this year. You never know what's gonna. Is Keon Coleman that guy? Is Khalil Shakir? Is he a wide receiver one? I don't think so.
I like it though.
But this matchup in specific, the Cardinals had a awful defense last year. I don't think there's any way to describe it otherwise. So even with this new look offense, I think Allen is going to be a heck of a start this year. Um, Last year, the Cardinals gave an average of 19 points a game to quarterbacks. With Josh Allen's running ability, he's going to absolutely murder them in this game. They didn't upgrade their defense at all. So he's going to be a heck of a start. They gave up an average of 19 points a game to running backs last year. And with the loss of Stephon Diggs, I think James Cook's going to get some of that passing. Um,
Go
a lot of
dogs.
vacated targets there. And James Cook is a heck of a receiving back. In the open field, he's going to murder cornerbacks. So I would look to be starting James Cook. And then they gave up an average of 25 points to receivers last year. So who would you start in that Bills room? Like, are you confident in any of them this week? Like, to start the season, I mean?
Personally, I feel like you got to wait till after week 1 to kind of see in terms of the receiver room. Now, Dalton Kincaid, James Cook, Josh Allen, start them. I don't care who you got, right? Start those guys. They're going to pop off. Honestly, Dalton Kincaid might be the number 1 target, and James Cook might be the second. Honestly, you never know. But receiver room wise, I would not start them until after week 1 to where you see that Josh Allen's got a guy. At least looking at the offense, if they can move it well with these receivers. Because if they can't move it well with these receivers, it's going to be a Dalton Kincaid, James Cook, Josh Allen show. So I would say you gotta wait till after week 1, maybe even week 2. I mean, you don't want to get this offense might not be as electric as people think because these receiver rooms kind of it's new.
Yeah. I kind of see the Bills wide receiver room as in the same light as I do the Chiefs. We really don't know who's going to be the one.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, at Kansas City, at least we know Rice is the one, but with this suspension looming, we really don't know. But with the Bills, there's just probably Curtis Samuel, if we had to guess.
I personally think Khalil Shakir because he's been in the offense, but he's a slot receiver. So Curtis Samuel is going to be the next guy up because he actually is a decent receiver. He's had a bad quarterback. It's more than likely. And you got Keon Coleman. I mean, he's a rookie, so I wouldn't be starting him. Out of the 3, if I had to pick one, I think I would go Curtis Samuel because he's going to be out there on the far left, the far right, right, lining up as a lead receiver, whereas Khalil Shakir is kind of a slot chain mover kind of guy. So
Now, Curtis Samuel does have past history with the OC of the Bills.
I did not know that.
So, yeah, so I think they'll utilize him a lot. Now, he was dealing with turf toe, so that's something to monitor. We really don't have an answer if he's going to be available week 1. But if he is, if you're needing a flex spot and you have these Bills receivers, Curtis Samuel offers the highest floor, in my opinion. I don't think he's going to go out there and just give you a dud.
Yeah,
Khalil Shakir, he's scary because last year at the end of the season, that's like the first time we've ever seen him
yeah.
do anything on the football field.
When the OC changed, yeah, it kind of went his way. But same thing for James Cook. So
Now, I do agree with you, Allen and James Cook. They're going to be killers. I think this is going to be this game just sets up for them perfectly. Now, I will slow you down a little bit with Kincaid. When
okay,
this when they started running the ball at the end of the season last year, he averaged 7 points a game. Now, that's not going to win. You're not going to be happy with that, especially with people putting him in like that top 5 tight end range for this
yeah,
year. So Kincaid, I would still start him, but he's kind of unknown. We don't know what he's going to look like. Now you're right. He could be the new Travis Kelce of this Bills offense. He could be the
Possible.
lead. Yeah, he could get the most targets. But I just wanted to point out it's a little unknown with him. Um,
I didn't know that
now
stat. So that's good.
now on the or on the Cardinal side, I mentioned Kyler because everybody just has huge expectations for him this year. When he's had 1,000-yard receiver, he's just been a top 5 quarterback in fantasy football. That's just how it is. But the Bills last year, they only gave up 14 points to the QB position. Um, Now the Bills have taken a lot of hits in the secondary. Their linebacker just got hurt. What was his name?
Milano?
Milano, yeah, he's fantastic, and he's going to be out for most of the season. Um, so I would start Kyler, but the Bills, Sean McDermott, of all of his faults, he always has a good defense. He's a he's a defensive coach, and they're always going to have a good defense no matter the limitations. We saw in the playoffs they had so many injuries, and they took it down to the wire with us, and like we couldn't hardly score on them, which we did have a problem scoring last year. So I'll just let that be. The Bills gave up 26 points per game to running backs last year. With Milano being out, there might be a few more running lanes. I would be perfectly fine starting James Conner this game. To the receiver position, they only gave up 24 points as a whole for the wide receiver group. Um, that one's a little dicey as well. We know they have Marvin. You'll start him, but who else do they have?
I mean, they've got Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch, and Trey McBride. The only other one I think, I mean, Michael Wilson's a pickup. I would pick up one of the two backups in the receiver room. I for sure would start Trey McBride in terms of because I think he's one of those top 5. But there's also a point that if Marvin Harrison's there, he loses targets because he becomes the guy. So for sure, Marvin Harrison. Yeah. Other than that, it's kind of. I mean, Trey McBride, I'd start him just because. But
Yeah, the reason I brought that up is because we don't know who the wide receiver 2 is in this team. So that's something to watch out for. There might be a guy that's worthy of picking up off the waivers after this first game if we see someone break out as the wide receiver 2. Like you were talking about with the tight end position, McBride, we all have really high, lofty expectations for him. The Bills only gave up 7.5 points to tight ends last year. Now, with McBride being such a focal point of this offense, you're still starting him. The Bills they're a good defense. But I don't think you should have any worry starting McBride this game. Now, since we've gone through all that, I'll make a point now. I am picking the Cardinals to win this game.
okay,
I think their offense is going to be so good this year. I picked James Conner in our draft. I mean, he's going to get hurt. I just have to expect that. But I think he's going to put up crazy points as well as Kyler and McBride. And I think Harrison's going to have a good season. He'll over 1,000 yards. But drafting him at that 1-2 turn, I don't think you're going to get good return on that. But Marvin will have a good year. I'm picking the Cardinals to win this game. Their defense is awful. I'll point that out now. But we just don't know how this Bills offense is going to look. It's going to be solely Allen and Cook and maybe Kincaid. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that? Do you like that
I
pick? Do you
I
hate it?
do. Just for I like the spice. I like the underdogs, and I like the people who don't think are gonna. I mean, they might not even be underdogs to be honest. But I
They're
like
underdogs.
okay, they are. I like the risky stuff sometimes. The Bills are just so unknown right now that it's almost I feel more secure picking a Cardinals team to start than I do other than Josh Allen, James Cook, when you point out Dalton Kincaid, it kind of makes me worry. But I just you don't know how they're going to play. I mean, Josh Allen, if they're going to run with him like they have been, there's no doubt he might get hurt. And if that's done, then you're done with the offense. It's over. So Cardinals, yeah, I think they can win this game. Defensively, both teams are it's tough, right? But our Cardinals are one of the bottom tier. Like I think they were ranked like 32nd to 31st last year in defense, and they didn't do anything. So, yeah, I like the pick.
I'm just worried about I think Josh Allen's going to have to be Superman this year in order for them to win games. And we've already seen he's turnover. He's a turnover machine.
Them fumbles
Um,
are
and
insane.
and I think if he's going to try to be Superman all year, the turnovers are just going to come with it. And I think that's going to lose them a lot of games this year. I'm not saying they're going to have a bad year. I think they'll probably still win the division. Um, but I think this game specifically, the Cardinals are going to give them a run for their money, and I think they're going to win.
I like it.
You write that down.
I'll write it down. We're gonna be keeping track. See who's on the hot seat for these matchup picks. These
Our friend
McDonald's
Brevin,
matchups.
our resident friend Brevin, who's a Bills fan, is going to be very mad at me.
He will, but it's okay. They can win week 2. They're not going to win week
Yes,
1.
sir.
Cardinals are in. They're locked in. I like it.
Starting 0-1. 0-1.
It'll be good for Marvin Harrison too if he pops off and they get a win. In terms of I'd be ecstatic for him. It's awesome. Cardinals. Well, let's talk about some Eagles and Packers. Listen,
I like it.
I am excited for this game. Talk about high octane offenses, and maybe not as much as the Packers. I might step back a little bit, but
No,
the way
no,
we've
don't.
seen, okay, I like it. High octane offenses coming against each other, and honestly, a new and improved defense in the Eagles and a solid defense in the Packers. Let me just go through a few stats I've taken down for you. Okay, last year, we'll start with the Eagles. They were 8th in total yards per game for offense. Solid, right? 8th in rushing yards per game. Fantastic. 16th in passing yards per game. So their offense was great last year. And honestly, they're the same offense. And they have a new and improved man in the backfield. Not a boy, a man in Saquon Barkley. So they are going to be killer. On top of that, a new OC, you know who they hired? Kellen Moore. Talk about a man with a pedigree that can run an offense. He was OC for Dallas in 18 to 22. Check these stats out, right? So, 2 times leading the team to the league best output in yards, and once in 2021 leading the NFL in scoring at 30 points per game. And Dallas in that season averaged 401.4 yards per game. And in 2022, Dallas ranked 2nd in the NFL in points per game and led the league in red zone touchdown efficiency at a 71%. That's insane. That is an offensive mind. I mean, I'm not a Dallas fan. I'm not trying to ride no meat here. But Kellen Moore is a stud in terms of offensive scheme, and you give him a good offense all around, and Devontae Smith and AJ Brown, Saquon Barkley. I mean, they did lose Jason Kelsey to the line. The line's the same, other than Jason Kelsey, who's a Hall of Famer. But I think they're going to be good in terms of offense. The issue. Okay, their defense. Let me give you the rankings last year. 27th in yards per game. In total yards. That's awful. 31st in passing yards per game. Their secondary they didn't even know what a receiver was. Okay? And 10th in rushing yards per game. Now, their front line, the only reason it's good is because they're built to Georgia Bulldogs. That's the only reason they've got a good defensive line, is because they got Georgia Bulldogs out there ready to pounce. Okay? Now, their defense is improved this year. They've added Cooper DeJean, good old white boy at corner. We'll see how that goes, right? Quinyon Mitchell, one of the highly touted corners, and then C.J. Gardner-Johnson. I'm talking they have improved their secondary, so I think they're going to be a better defense in terms of the passing game. They're going to look like a good team. Now, it doesn't really matter in terms of fantasy, but they are going to turn up. Now, the people I would start from this team are obvious, I think. You're going to start everybody on the offense. I don't care who you are, except for Dallas Goedert. And you might even start Dallas Goedert. You wouldn't? It's an option. So last year, Jalen Hurts threw 3,853 yards, 23 touchdowns, 15 interceptions, 605 yards on the ground, and 15 touchdowns. He's a top-tier quarterback. I mean, he could obviously be the number one with his rushing upside. There's no doubt you're going to start him, right? I mean, if you pick him, you're picking him because of who he is. You're starting A.J. Brown, you're starting Devontae Smith, and you're starting Saquon Barkley. There's no doubt behind those. I'm really big on Devontae Smith because I think with this new OC, they're going to be passing that thing like crazy. And I mean, Saquon is going to open up that field for them in terms of they're going to have to stack the box. I mean, you're going to have to put some linemen down there. So I think it's a big year for Devontae Smith, so I'm excited to see how that goes. But you're starting the whole offense other than Dallas Go Dirt. Now watch out for him. Stream him. You never know. All right, we'll look at the
Don't worry
Packers.
about it.
Okay, don't worry about Dallas. You're off that one.
No.
All right,
Yeah.
with the Packers, last year in offense they were yards per game 11th at 345.5. Passing yard per game they were 12th. Rushing yards per game 15th. They were a good offense last year. I think they're going to be even better this year. The fact that Jordan Love gets another year in the NFL after that last half of the season where he popped off, I think they are going to be electric. I do. I love when I looked at this team. Their defense was actually really good last year. They were 17th in yards per game, passing yards per game they were 9th, and rushing yards per game they were 28th. So their front line's not that great, but I think they're going to be better this year. I mean, you only can hope that they'll be better, obviously. They've added Josh Jacobs, Malik Willis, huge addition. No, not really. I just wanted to throw that out there. But I think with Josh Jacobs, with the upcoming of AJ Dillon being on the IR, I think he's higher value. They may have to go with workload in terms of running back if the other guys don't pan out. And we know, without a shadow of doubt, when Josh Jacobs gets the touches, he's going to produce. You know what I mean? So the Packers are looking good. You're going to start Jordan Love. He had a fantastic year. The hard part about the receiver room is you just don't know who's number one, right? You think it's Jaden Reed, right? I honestly agree with you. Christian Watson, you're starting him. You're starting Jaden Reed. I don't know if I'm starting Romeo Doubs. I just don't feel like he's worth the risk in terms of targets. It can't go everywhere. If I'm starting any receivers from this team, it's definitely Christian Watson and Jaden Reed. I'm starting Christian Watson for the ceiling. I mean, if Jordan Love can throw those bombs, he's the guy. Jaden Reed panned out real good in that last half of the season, and he's not as injured. Christian Watson's, like you said, injury away from not doing much more. But all that being said, right, and I wanted to make a shout out to a high school friend. I know he's not going to watch this podcast. Chris Russell from high school was playing out there as a linebacker for the Green Bay Packers. He signed with the practice squad. He got cut today, but other than that, at least he was out there. It was kind of cool to see. So I wanted to just throw that out there as a good old Dyersburg Trojan. But I have got Philly winning this game. I think Philly is just going to be a top-tier team this year. I think they're going to rerun it and try to do what they couldn't do in the playoffs last year with an awful showing of what they shouldn't be. Right? It was a terrible game. I think Philly's going to win this game. I think it's going to be a good game. It's going to be in Brazil, so you never know how that goes. How do you feel about this, Mr. Matt McDonald?
I go super back and forth with the Eagles on how I think they're going to do this year. I don't think we can understate Jason Kelsey leaving the team. I mean, he did a lot. Like, he was calling the protection. He was doing a lot in certain times. Like, there was a famous play last year where Jalen Hurts tried to change the play, and Jason Kelsey overruled him and said, "We're not changing the play." Like, he did a lot on that offensive line. So I mean, they're still going to have a good line. Don't get me wrong, but this is just going to put more. It's going to put more on Jalen Hurts' plate. And from what we saw that year we played the Eagles in the Super Bowl, he's had a little bit of a downturn from there. He struggled kind of against the blitz, but he was supposed to be hurt last year. So we'll see what kind of shape he's in this year. I do agree with you. Kellen Moore is going to add some. He's going to put a lot more motion in this offense, which should help us fantasy-wise. He's talked about how he's going to put A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith both in motion. So that's exciting. I think that'll give them a lot better opportunities. We kind of saw that offense get figured out halfway through the year last year. I mean, the second half of the season, they just looked rough. I don't know what – I've heard people call it a supernatural funk on First Things First. I don't know if they're out of that. But in general, this team's loaded, so they should be good. That defense, I don't think you can you can rely on those two cornerbacks, the two rookies, to be good immediately. It's going to take time for them. So their defense probably won't be, at least the back end won't be that good for the start of the season. But you never know. Those guys could be phenomenal. We just have to kind of wait and see. But I do agree with you. It's going to be a high-scoring game. The Packers, I think it's Jaden Reed personally. But when Christian Watson was on the field last year, he was the number one guy as far as target share goes. So we'll just kind of have to wait and see. All year, I think Jaden Reed's going to outpace him just because Christian Watson's always hurt. But you brought up Dobbs. He has been mentioned as the lead guy in practices.
Interesting.
So that just adds another wrinkle. We really, and not even to mention they have Dontavian Wicks as
Yeah,
well.
Dontavian Wicks is a
That
streamer.
he's a very capable wide receiver, which kind of makes it tough because Jaden Reed he had an abnormal amount of his targets that were touchdowns. Like he had a very limited target share, but a lot of them were for touchdowns, and that's why he did so good last year.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say who's going to be the best. I have my faith in Jaden Reed just because of how durable, and I really think he's a phenomenal player. But with them having four capable receivers like that, it's going to be a hard choice every week. I don't disagree with you. If Christian Watson's healthy, he can have just huge spike weeks. But I think with them having so many receivers, the floor on these guys is pretty low
Yeah.
just because of how much they're going to spread out the ball. That's kind of why I'm in favor of Jaden Reed, just because I think he's going to get peppered, whether it's manufactured targets behind the line of scrimmage. I just think he's going to get the most consistent target share on a weekly basis.
I agree with you. I like Jaden Reed. Last year he had 8 touchdowns. Romeo Dobbs also had 8 touchdowns. So it's hard to see who's the guy out there. But all that being said, it guarantees Jordan Love's going to have some guys to throw to, and they're all at least decent guys. Like they're not bad receivers. They have a good receiver room. For fantasy,
These
it kind
two
of sucks, but
these two teams, their offenses are going to carry fantasy teams every week. AJ Brown, I think he has potential to be a top 5 guy this year. With Kellen Moore adding the wrinkles in this offense, I think he has a potential. I think his potential is just there's no roof to it. He could just have a heck of a year, and the value on Smith that you get where he was drafted this year, I think he could just be a huge return on investment this year. Saquon, I'm not sure about. I mean, Swift did good in this offense last year. So I mean, Saquon will too. I just don't know how much better it's going to be than Swift's production last year. Just because Jalen vultures so many of the goal line touches. Like, if they continue to do this tush push, Saquon better hope he gets over that end zone when they're running like 5 yards away. Because if they get anything within 3 yards to the goal line, they're doing that. It's a tush push every time. I really hope they stop doing that. I just hate watching it. Yeah, and it takes so much value away from the running back. And I would like to see Saquon succeed. I really hope he does. He's a heck of a player. And with him not having all the defensive focus on him, I think he'll have a pretty good year.
Yeah, his boxes are. I bet he's going to be like, dude, I never knew this could be this easy, right? Coming from the Giants, honestly, it's kind of crazy. He went from O line 20 ranking in 29, right? The O line was the 29th ranked O line to a possible number 2 this year.
Oh yeah,
They were number 1 last year, but they're kind of ranked number 2. So that's a massive change in O line.
It's going to be a whole new world for him.
Yeah, he's going to be like, wow, I should have left a long time ago. I did want to say, Philly has to be a good team this year because they're built off Georgia Bulldogs. The amount of Georgia Bulldogs on this team is unreal. Even second and third string, they are built off of Georgia in terms of defense, especially. It's crazy.
You're right. I mean, Howie Roseman, he loves the Georgia Bulldogs. I don't know why.
I don't blame him. Studs.
How'd it turn out last year?
Obviously, it didn't do the greatest, but they got Javon Bullard, one of our safeties. It's fantastic. He should do good. I mean, they've got a lot of them. They have a crazy amount. Well, we're hitting about that mark in time, so I think we're going to call it for the day.
All
Unless
right.
you want to do the Houston, we have a problem.
Go ahead. You can do
Okay.
it.
All right. We'll make it quick. New segment called Houston, we have a problem. I am going to give a bold prediction for this week on an upset. Okay. Now, Matt, all you have to do is you have to tell me if you agree or you disagree. I'll make it quick. I have got the Panthers beating the Saints. Now, the Panthers sucked last year. They were last in every category. Their defense, on the other hand, was not bad. With the loss of Brian Burns, I mean, and Dante Jackson, I mean, they're still probably not going to be that great in terms, or they're going to be worse. But I think they'll be okay in defense. They brought back a lot of guys. Their offense is not brand new, but it's newer. Okay, I mean, they got old man Adam Thielen. Their new head coach Dave Canales came from Tampa Bay. He was at Seattle for a little bit. He is known for renewing quarterbacks, right? I mean, you can look at his pedigree. Baker was not exactly what we thought he'd be. So I think he's going to upgrade Bryce Young this year. Their OC is Brad Ibzik. He is a receiver coach from Tampa Bay. So if they've just imported Tampa Bay coaches and brought them to the Panthers. So I think their offense is going to look a lot better. And quarterbacks are known in their sophomore year for having a big jump. Now, I don't know what that's going to look like for Bryce Young, but I definitely think he's going to have a better year. We talked about earlier, he's going to be rolling out a lot more, being able to kind of be free out there. So I think that's going to help him because that's what he's known for. But now I'm not saying they're going to be a good team all year, but I got them beating the Saints. The offense is also just cheeks on the other side of the Saints. I mean, they could be good, they might be bad, right? The Panthers have added Deontay Johnson. That's one of the best route runners out there. I mean, can he catch the ball? I don't know, but I think I think the Panthers are going to win this
Call
one.
him Kadarius Toney.
Seriously. So with that, Houston, we have a problem. Bold prediction. What do you think?
I actually like it. I'm a huge Dave fan. I think him coming over there, he's. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't think Bryce Young is just a long-term starter in the NFL. But at least Dave Canales is going to have him doing what he succeeds at. He was so good rolling out of the pocket at Alabama. He's just play action is his thing, and I really think that they're going to unlock that this year. And adding Deontay Johnson, if they can get to where they can throw the ball consistently, that's just going to open up the run game for them as well. I really think they'll be improved. Like you said, we're not predicting they're going to be a great team this year. But Derek Carr, he's a goner. Just I think the Saints offense is going to be terrible. That's why I've steered away from Olave in every single draft. Just him and Carr just can't get it figured out together. The only guy I like on that team is Kamara, just because of how many passes he catches. Derek Carr loves to dump it off to him. So I just don't think the Saints are going to be able to put up enough points to be good this year. And I hate Dennis Allen with a burning passion. I hate that
Not a
coach.
fan, huh?
He just puts down his players all the time. Like he's the team. He's supposed to be the leader of this team, and he's just putting down his own players. Um,
I'm not a fan of
so
him either. Yeah.
put that aside. I think I like to pick the Panthers winning this game. I don't think either offense is great, but I think the Panthers will be improved enough to where they can win this game or at least have a chance at it.
I agree. That's why it's a Houston. We have a problem. We got the Panthers beating the Saints week 1. Well, you keep us track. Well, tell us how we did, right? See if we were right in these bold predictions. We're going to keep a record of ourselves. If you'd like to get in contact with us, you can reach us at takeologyfootball@outlook.com. That's TAKEOLOGY football@outlook.com. Send us questions, send us some comments. We'll talk about them on the podcast later if we see them. Thank you guys for listening so much. Just me and Matt. You know, Avery's got to go get his ladies out there, so that's what he's trying to do. You know, trying to find him
good
a
for
woman.
him.
Good for him. We all need one, right?
We're rooting for him.
So y'all see how he's doing, right? Check on him. But we will catch you later. Thank you for joining Takeology. You guys have a great rest of your day.
See you guys.